All right, what the heck's happening with Alkermes? For those of you who don't remember, Alkermes, symbol ALKS, develops drug delivery technologies along with its own proprietary compounds for diseases related to a very difficult area, the central nervous system. The company has long-acting therapies for schizophrenia, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, along with Vivitrol, a once-monthly drug that helps recovering alcoholics and opioid addicts stay on the wagon. This one's big now. Here's a stock that's been on fire thanks to the strength of its pipeline, nearly doubling from last October through early March. Then it got caught up in that big biotech sell-off like a lot of the others, tumbling 25% from March 5th through the end of April, along with the rest of the group. Since then, Alkermes has basically been treading water, even as the company released some very positive clinical trial data. But then yesterday, we started hearing chatter about how Alkermes might be a potential takeover candidate. Stock jumps more than 10% in a single session, a bit of which was rolled back today when the company stated that it wants to stay independent. Regardless of whether or not there's a buyer waiting in the wings, I like Alkermes based on the fundamentals. Just last week, the company released some incredibly important, very strong phase 3 clinical trial results for its long-acting version of Abilify for schizophrenia, which means this drug could get FDA approval in the not-too-distant future if everything goes right. Plus, next week, Alkermes will be presenting phase 3 trial data on its impressive depression drug that could potentially do $1 billion in peak sales, and we'll get phase 2 data on another schizophrenia drug Alkermes is developing that basically acts like Zyprexa, which was once the best-selling antipsychotic on the market before it went off patent, but with much less weight gain, which is one of the main reasons why people with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder go off their meds. Always loving the takeovers, but with all these catalysts, I bet Alkermes could work its way higher on its own. Let's take a closer look with Richard Pops. He's the chairman and CEO of Alkermes. Hear more about his company's prospects. Mr. Pops, welcome back to Bad Money. Richard, good to see you.
Good to see you again. Thank you.
This is probably, I think, the moment where I've seen, this is the most I've ever seen the company releasing right now. I'm wondering whether people got excited, maybe take over, maybe not. You say stay independent, and they look at the company and realize, holy cow, the milestones ahead right now are the best this company's ever had.
We've been working so hard for so many years to get the pipeline to where it is now. We're just getting going. So we present data on multiple drugs in major scientific meetings. That's why we do this, is to share this with the community.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to prioritize them. I mean, because ALKS 3831, antipsychotic with no weight gain, it could be $1 billion.
Well, as you said in the intro, Zyprexa was a $5 billion drug.
Biggest.
Even with the serious metabolic consequences of weight gain. So our scientists said, how do we capture the efficacy of olanzapine, Zyprexa, and address its principal limitation for patients, which is the weight gain? And so far, we've been successful doing that.
And I don't think people realize, when you say weight gain, I mean, you're not talking about 5 pounds.
No, we're talking
60 pounds.
60 pounds, exactly right. And so what that means is often patients won't sit around long enough to gain 60 pounds. They'll actually stop taking their medicines.
Right.
And for patients with schizophrenia, the implication of that is they end up relapsing to their schizophrenia.
Of course. Now, major depression disorder, ALKS 5461. I'm always hoping you'll name these at one point. What are you seeing there for this? Because this also seems to be pretty breakout versus what's currently available.
Well, the world is desperate for a new mechanism of action in depression. The SSRIs are brilliant drugs, but did you know 12 million people a year go on these drugs in the U.S., and 7 million fail on their first course, and 5 million fail on their second. So there's been this long-standing desire and need for a new approach. So 5461, we'll present data on next week as well. We have data now from large randomized studies, and most recently, one of the first studies in our pivotal program showing the beautiful effect in patients who are refractory to treatment with SSRIs, and showing that the effect lasts not just 4 weeks, but 8 weeks in this clinical trial.
Great. Richard, why is central nervous system so hard? Why have so many drug companies abandoned it?
It's very different than other areas because the clinical trial endpoints, what we measure is often scales to ask people how they feel. So inherently variable. Measuring blood pressure or cholesterol, that's quite easy. But developing the instruments and the methods for testing these drugs, as well as coming up with new mechanisms, is quite challenging. But we've been really successful so far.
And the brain is just really hard to figure.
It's super complicated.
Wow. Okay, so Vivitrol. You and I have been talking about this drug, I don't know, for maybe a decade. It seems, then I read the Washington Post magazine article, which basically is everything that you've been talking about. I have to believe that there are prison populations in this country that could be depleted dramatically if this were to be a pilot program that was successful all over the country. Maybe you can describe it.
I think that this criminal justice system, the way we incarcerate people with mental illness, is one of the greatest crises/opportunities in public policy. And as I learn more about this, we see that if you can take medicines that can be given once a month that address addiction or mental illness, keep people out of prison, keep them from recidivating, keep them in the community, paying taxes, working, being gainfully employed, it's a huge opportunity. What we're doing with Vivitrol now is that I think now in almost 30 states, in more than 70 programs, judges, drug courts, sheriffs, they're testing the use of Vivitrol in their own systems, in their own hands, not sponsored by our company as a clinical trial, just in the real world. And we're seeing these really beautiful results.
And the sales are pretty amazing.
They're growing.
This was creeping along when you first told me that there were people who were fighting it. There are a whole, there are many institutions that would not be in favor of this, but the sales ramp just has taken off here.
It's beginning to go. I said, this will be a drug that'll be 10 years to be an overnight success. We hear people talk about this new drug, Vivitrol, the new injection, but we've been fighting this for many years with you.
You got to point out to people again that the beauty of an injection is that people often think they don't need to take something.
Correct.
They feel better. A bipolar person feels better. A schizophrenic, they say, "Hey, I'm all better," and that's often the enemy of what drugs are trying to do.
And when during the course of that month do you decide not to take your medications? It's probably right when you're on the brink of getting in trouble.
Right.
And so a once-a-month injection provides a safety net. It's not the cure in an injection, because you still need the counseling, you need the support. And you also need to come back every month and get that injection.
Right.
But if you do so, I think the outcomes can be much better.
Richard, the takeover stuff, I mean, I know you periodically have to deal with it, but you are a Dublin-based company. We're seeing some of these companies based in Ireland just make acquisition after acquisition because you changed the tax status. That's not been your style.
No. Those companies are in a different business, really. They're rolling up their earnings and using economies of scale. We're developing brand new medicines that are addressing some of the most severe indications known to man.
Well, and I would be wrong when you say that. That makes me think I've not asked you about the MS drug ever. I mean, because it's so early. But is it not as early now? I mean,
it's not as early now. We presented data a couple weeks ago at a medical meeting on that drug. That drug is going to move to phase 3.
And that's a Tecfidera similar?
It is. It's intended to build upon the pharmacology established by Tecfidera, but we think we might be able to even improve upon it.
That's
but
a
we'll see in trial.
multi-billion-dollar indication.
It is, and that's interesting about the CNS. There's so many patients suffering that almost any of these drugs could be very, very big if they're successful.
Well, that's why I think that the stock was right to go up 10%, but just wrong for the wrong reason. It's not takeover. It could be the fundamentals. That's Richard Pops from Alkermes, Alks, the chairman, CEO. We've liked this company for a very long time. We liked it in the teens. We've been right. You should take a look at it. After the break, I'll try to make you more money. Booyah! Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.